So I think we all like a fan theory. I think all of us like the idea of something the fans create being true, or at least having this idea to make the world a little bit bigger than it actually is. In our favorite fantasy worlds, or I think it's a really cool aspect of being a fan of things, is that you can kind of add your own little twist on it if the evidence is right. I went scoured through the internet to find a few and talked to some of my friends, saying what they thought, and I'm going to tell you about a few of these and deem if I think they're false, plausible, or basically true, because they've never become canon. The first one I'm going to start with is one I don't know if people are being serious. Kevin from Home Alone is Jigsaw. Okay, Home Alone takes place in 1990, at least the first one does. The rest of them I don't know when exactly they take place, but Saw takes place in 2004. Jigsaw, also known as John Kramer, is in his 60s and is cancer-ridden. Kevin McAllister's 10. Now, if this is saying that Kevin McAllister is Jigsaw as in John Kramer's not Jigsaw, completely different case and that it's being made, but I don't think that's what it's saying. I think they're saying that Kevin McAllister is a twisted young man who likes to make traps for people who don't belong where they're supposed to, or commit sin where he deems is not right, much like Jigsaw does. I don't think he's Jigsaw though. I don't think he's John Kramer, at least. Could he be an apprentice? He'd be an awesome apprentice, actually. I think he'd be really good at the job. Probably better than Amanda or Hoffman. Definitely better than, what's his fucking name, Logan? Kevin McAllister is definitely not John Kramer, aka Jigsaw. This is completely false. I think it's fun. I think it's funny. If Home Alone took place in the 50s or 60s, I'd be more on board with this idea. But the simple math of it all being all of Kevin McAllister being around 10 in 1990 and then 14 years later being a 60-year-old man doesn't check out. Unless he's, on X-Men time where you look like you're in your 80s by the 10 years time from Dark Phoenix. That was a weird fucking movie. Franchise. Resident Evil 7 had a demo before the game came out that's fully playable. It had bits and pieces of what would eventually become Resident Evil 7, obviously. There's like similar villains, similar storyline, but a lot of people believe that the caller in Resident Evil 7's demo is Ada Wong. And I'm a big Ada fan. I love Ada Wong. And I think a lot of people thought this was Ada Wong's voice actor from Resident Evil 2's remake. I think this theory came out after Resident Evil 2 remake. I could be wrong. The caller gives a lot of vague riddles and sentences to the character in the demo.
I know who you are.
Who are you?
You will have to say goodbye eventually. But will you be ready? I know who you are.
Who are you?
You have the power to choose, but the outcome of that choice may not be what you expect. I know who you are.
Who are you?
Memories hold the truth. Don't let appearances mislead you.
It's not on her. It must be in the nest.
I simply don't think this is Ada Wong. Ada Wong doesn't really speak in riddles. She likes to play with things a lot. She is a very big player of people. She's very more antagonistic. If she's going to be anything, she's not going to be vague. She's very in your face about being antagonistic. That's the charm of her. She's sassy. She's antagonistic. She likes to play with her food. That's what we love about her. She's not a vague riddle person. Like, she's not the fucking Riddler from Arkham. But a lot of people think this is Ada Wong because of the voice actor. Okay, so let's look into that. The voice actor in the Resident Evil 7 demo that I could find from the wiki pages, from the IMDb's, this is not Ada Wong's voice actor from Resident Evil 2 Remake, at least. Her voice actor is the same woman who plays Zoe Baker. The Resident Evil 7 demo is a case of Occam's razor, I think. The simplest answer is probably the right answer. This is Zoe Baker. It's simply Zoe Baker just making the phone calls to us and giving us less than helpful advice in those throughout the game. But I do think it's an interesting thing. But yeah, I don't think that Ada Wong is helping us in the Resident Evil 7 demo. Do I hope to see Ada Wong at some point soon? I do. I think that it'd be fun to see her in this next trilogy. Yeah, we've had a lack of Ada Wong that wasn't from the remakes, and she's a fan favorite. Everyone fucking loves Ada Wong. If you don't like Ada Wong, I think you may just be a hater. Many people believe that the monster vs. Godzilla is a biblical Leviathan. Now, I don't want to step on any toes here. I haven't read my Bible in a long time. This is some pure research from the internet. I have not read these passages. I could be wrong. So fill me in the comments below if I'm being a fucking idiot, which is very, very possible. But yeah, people believe that Monster vs. Godzilla, our big bulky boy, is a biblical Leviathan. So in Godzilla Awakening, the comic, it's stated that Godzilla's species came around existence around 250 million years ago. So plenty of time here on Earth. You know, he's been here for a while, or his species at least. There's a running theory that Godzilla isn't the one we saw fight Ghidorah in those cave paintings in the end of Kong Skull Island. The theory is that was a different Godzilla, a different part of the species. And you know what? That's possible. We've seen Kong go through his species, and he's the last Kong. But Godzilla seems to be the last one hanging around. And I think it's pretty easy to think that there's definitely been other ones in the past. I mean, it's pretty canon for Godzilla to have a kid in his movies. That Godzilla could be different. It's not like Godzilla's just been hanging out for 250 million years. He's also been hibernating for however fucking long. Anyways, Leviathans in the Bible are stated to be these long, serpentine, dragon-like beings. And I know what you're about to say. Legs. Evolution is very possible. We've seen evolution with through animals and plants and stuff like that to adapt to the environment. And if Godzilla needed to go on land, adapting feet and arms is very possible. So I don't think it's a very, especially in 250 million years, I think it's a possibility. I don't know if it's out of the question, especially if he's a descendant from Leviathan and his Godzilla line. In the Bible, God defeats a Leviathan. Some interpretations have this as two Leviathan. So if that were the case, Godzilla would kill one Titanus Gojira, leave the other one alive. Which, again, some interpretations of the Bible do have that be the case, where there's two Leviathans, so they don't procreate and create more havoc and chaos. They'll eventually die out. So this might be just Godzilla's fate of being a loner in this world. And there's no more Godzillas that we've seen. We haven't seen any other Titanus Gojira around, unlike the Kongs. In the Book of Psalms, there is it refers to the Leviathan to have multiple heads, which would turn this theory around to, I believe, Ghidorah being the Leviathan, have those dragon-like features and having multiple heads. And now, again, God defeated the Leviathan. And I think the words in the Bible are smited. But again, it's gone through so many interpretations that Ghidorah could have just been exiled, whether it be to the ice that they find the monster vs. Ghidorah in, or in space like he had been according to the movie, because Ghidorah's a fucking alien. There are punishments worse than death, so I think God could have just doomed Ghidorah to there, and Ghidorah actually being the biblical Leviathan instead of Godzilla. That's my take on reading the passages from the Bible and looking at their biology, is that Godzilla may not be the Leviathan, Ghidorah is. Which I kind of love, because Godzilla's named Godzilla. I know it's a nickname, and his whole species is Gojira's, but God killing the Leviathan again, twice over now, I think it's really cool. I think it's really fun. So I don't think that this theory of Godzilla being a biblical Leviathan is true. I do believe there's things that do correlate. I think that Ghidorah, though, could be a biblical Leviathan, and the interpretation of being a dragon-like being with multiple heads does line up for Ghidorah. And there's also a lot of imagery, God imagery with Ghidorah. I get that there's God imagery with Godzilla, but like in the MonsterVerse, Ghidorah is heavily associated with God, especially when he rises and beats Godzilla for the first time. There's literally a cross in the face. It is him, defying God, beating God as a Leviathan, and then God returns and fucking whoops his shit, bro. I love that movie. King of the Monsters is great. The Blair Witch Project. People believe, and this is a very popular theory, as Matt Peck covered it. I'll leave his link in the description below so you can watch the whole explanation of it. But I want to talk about it in the first place because it's very popular. The Blair Witch does not exist in the Blair Witch Project. So the horror movie that does nothing about it has nothing. So the kind of the core idea of the Blair Witch Project is this film team goes out and films a documentary about the Blair Witch. And the idea is that the two guys in the film crew are intending to kill Heather, who's the main girl in the movie. And they're doing these things in the movie to make it easier for her to not be found, them to not have any ties to them through the evidence recording. It's heavily implied in the movie that the Blair Witch is having effects on them and making them go crazy. And they argue throughout the whole movie. But it also can be heavily implied that they're plotting for her demise. The actions that throughout the movie of throwing away the map, losing the map, arguing, parading, creating these complex diversions like the bundle of sticks and the rustling of the tent are easily possible by a normal person to do. It doesn't have to be a Blair Witch. And at the end of the movie, we never see the Blair Witch. The Blair Witch never appears. We see one of the guys standing in the corner of the room, and then we kind of just end the movie, which is why I don't think the movie's very good. If it's easily done by humans, and they're doing these wild activities, could they be planning the murder? In my mind, since we don't see a Blair Witch, and I haven't watched Blair Witch 2 and the Blair Witch, the remake, or not remake, whatever the fuck it is, in 2016. I've never fucking watched it. I don't know if the Blair Witch actually exists in canon of the Blair Witch universe, but I'm inclined to say that, yeah, they do intend to kill Heather. I think that's the whole point of the movie. I think the movie gets scarier if you watch it under the lens that they're trying to kill Heather, and she's just, she doesn't see it. She thinks that's the Blair Witch fucking with her. And having that aspect of our main character, in sense, looking this way, and then looking that up while they're doing things in this way, I think it makes it scarier. I think it makes the movie better, actually. If it's about a movie about two guys plotting the murder secretly under the nose of the person who's videotaping, instantly scarier. I'm sorry, that makes a better movie. And I'm inclined to believe this is true. I'm inclined to believe that this is basically canon. I think it's a fantastic theory. I think that Maphead did his work, but I seriously think they intend to kill Heather in that movie, and I think it makes it a better movie. It makes it worth watching. N is a Zoroark. Okay, before we start this theory, I want you to know what N's canon name is. N's actual name is Natural Harmonia Gropius, which basically just comes out to, if you take away from the Greek, is natural harmony. Harmonia is a goddess, I believe in Greek, for peace and tranquility. Architect, because Walter Gropius was a famous architect back in the day. So basically, N is named Natural Peacemaker. That's his fucking name. Just want to put that out there. I didn't know if anyone knew that. I found that out today when I was researching this video. Also, to get this out of the way, N talks a lot in the games. He makes several speeches. He talks to the player. He has a lot of conversations. Pokemon can talk. There's multiple instances in the games and in the movies. I mean, Mewtwo drops fucking bars.
I see now that the circumstances of one's birth are irrelevant. It is what you do with the gift of life that determines who you are. Meowth talks. Bill talks when he becomes a Pokemon, and the way he's able to talk is that he speaks. He's not like doing like Pika Pika. He has the vocal capabilities to speak, and if you need the vocal capabilities in the first place to be able to speak. So Pokemon speaking isn't a new thing. It's kind of like a running gag in a way, but it helps this theory out. And obviously, kind of looks like a Zoroark. He's got that poofy hair with the braid. He's made to look like Zoroark, but also a lot of people look like their Pokemon in the games. So it's not just going to end there. It's just like a visual tell to us that he's associated with Zoroark. In Black and White 2, we find a Zoroark in like Victory Road. I think it's Victory Road. And it runs away from us. Faster than we can keep up with it. It's fucking speedy. And then we follow the tracks of the Zoroark, and we eventually lead into N. Not the Zoroark, N. And we have a conversation with him. But the fact that the Zoroark is gone and N is there in his place,
gives a little inclination. Hey, maybe it's just N, or he just went to his Pokeball. Who knows? Black and White 2 also have flashbacks to the memory link item. The Zoroark memories that we look through are N's memories, and you might be thinking, N is very close to his Pokemon. We see that throughout. He's very close and very loving to his Pokemon, and that would give us the inclination that the Zoroark was just there. But Zoroark wasn't there. It was only N. N was the only person there. How is the memory link option working? If it works like Assassin's Creed, N is the Zoroark. Like I said, he's got unique relationships with Pokemon. He's very kind. He's bonded pretty closely with Pokemon, and he's pushing these ideas for Pokemon and humans to be separated so deeply that it's pushed by Gestis, but he also is pushing those agendas and not realizing how close he is to his Pokemon. But maybe if he is a Pokemon, it doesn't really affect him. Actually, he gets probably more peace. He gets away from Gestis, gets away from humanity. As a Zoroark, he can hang out with all his Pokemon friends. He's a pawn of Gestis, which also can mean that he is following commands, like a Pokemon may do. And then at the end, I believe, of Black and White 2, Gestis calls him a freak. And while Gestis is not his father, it's a fatherly figure, and would not call him a freak if it weren't for a simple thing. He's not ugly. He disobeys, but he might be calling him a freak because he's a Pokemon who has relationships with humans, much like our player. Do I think this is true? I think it's plausible. I think it's in the middle area. There's a lot to go against it because I don't think Pokemon have that complicated vocal speech. A lot of things could be just kind of like parallels between him and his Pokemon, him and Zoroark. But the ideas of him pushing the Pokemon and humans should be a separate thing, have the segregation between him and Pokemon, and him pushing for it when he's so closely bonded with his Pokemon doesn't make sense unless he is also a Pokemon to me narratively. So I'm gonna put this in the plausible spirit. Depends what side of the ball you're on. Captain Rex is Nick Saint, whatever, a commander at the Battle of Endor. So Captain Rex is a clone from the Clone Wars. He is born around 32 before the Battle of Yavin. And Endor happens at 4 years after the Battle of Yavin. So yeah, clones age pretty fast. They, as we saw from the Attack of the Clones, they're not slow to age. They speed up their aging process.
We take great pride in our combat education and training programs. This group was created about 5 years ago.
You mentioned growth acceleration.
Oh yes, it's essential. Otherwise a mature clone would take a lifetime to grow. Now we can do it in half the time.
We're about at the age of 10. They're basically 20 years old. They're fully grown adults. They have the capabilities. This is important because if he's only 36, why does he look like an old man? Well, if he ages differently than we do, it simply could mean he just aged older. Being only 36 years old and looking like in your 50s or 60s can make you look like that, and they don't age the same as us. So it easily kind of mocked up to that could be just Captain Rex. Not only is that a big thing, is that Filoni really likes the idea. He has said in several interviews that he likes the idea of Captain Rex being that guy at the Battle of Endor, but he doesn't want to canonize anything that he had no part in making. So everything in Star Wars that he's been making canon is because that he is making them. He has a part in the process, but he had no hand in the making of Return of the Jedi. So he believes he has no ability to make it canon. So this will never be canon, like most of fan theories will ever be. But on the things he did make canon, Rebels. Star Wars Rebels, again, a sequel animated series essentially after the 6th episode. Captain Rex does show up in that, and he is an old man who wears very similar armor to Nick. I think this is Filoni's way of just basically making this canon. It's not going to be canon. It's never going to be considered canon because of Filoni's ideology and philosophy. Captain Rex is so heavily implied to be Nick, it's basically confirmed. I think this is just basically canon. You can consider it canon. I don't think it would affect anything. I think it's such a small detail that I think actually makes the Battle of Endor more fun. Have a Republic hero essentially who is a clone who after the whole big bad thing that happened in Order 66. Makes it so much more interesting for the story going forward. Just having a little bit of tidbit of information, I think is cool. Going into the anime sphere of things, JJK, apparently a lot of people think that Rika killed her parents. This comes from a line from her grandmother that said it's her fault that her parents have died. Her parents died when she was about 5. Well, her mother died when she was 5. Her father went missing right before elementary school and was presumed dead. So the grandmother claims that Rika is the reason why her parents died. That's kind of the basis around this theory. That's kind of where it all kind of ends. Rika's a 5-year-old. I don't think killed her fucking mom or made her dad go missing. It's complicated. I think this is just a way for them to basically say that Rika is cursed more than just by Yuta. That she has been cursed her whole life rather than just by Yuta. That it's just to cement the idea that Rika has been this bad omen her whole life. That she's been this problem her whole life. That people think of her as a curse, an actual curse rather than a cursed spirit. And that Yuta just lashed onto her. The only evidence I could see besides the grandmother claiming that she did kill her parents is that Rika is very murderous and defensive over Yuta. So if there was a chance in hell that her parents were moving away from Yuta or saying that she can't be friends with Yuta anymore, then she may then she may act. But she's 11 years old when she dies and becomes a cursed spirit. I don't think that she could live for 5, 6 years knowing that she killed her parents and all of a sudden be a thing. I think it's just a thematic thing. It's the smallest theory I have in here, just because it's kind of just one line that gives us the inclination that she could have killed her parents. But I think it's kind of like those things where people blame the kids for the reason why people get divorced. I think it's just kind of that type of deal. But yeah. I do not believe that Rika killed her parents. Why is the Turbo Red Ranger gone from Tommy? This is a theory that's kind of been thrown around. So there's multiple episodes where Tommy has a Master Morpher where he can use all the abilities of his previous Power Rangers forms. He used the Green Ranger, the White Ranger, the Black Ranger from Dino Thunder, and the Red Zeo Ranger. He has all the abilities. He can use all of them. Besides Turbo, he was the Red Turbo Ranger, and I mean, the easy answer to this is that they don't have the budget for the Red Turbo Ranger, and they also don't want to confuse the kids with 2 Red Rangers. From the production standpoint of things. But again, canon, he has all of them, all the abilities of the other Power Rangers. Why Tommy can't morph into the Red Turbo Ranger? I think the reason why he can't morph into the Red Turbo Ranger is simply because of the morphing grid. You guys don't know, the morphing grid is what gives all the powers to the Power Rangers, that gives them all the abilities they can do. During Turbo, Tommy does give away his red powers to TJ. So if TJ is actively being the Red Turbo Ranger, Tommy could morph into the Red Turbo Ranger, but it had devastating effects onto the morphing grid. It would be horrible. It could cause malfunction to shut down, because the morphing grid does shut down. It would cause problems for everyone, and I don't think Tommy thinks it's worth it if there's another Ranger who has the same powers. There is other Red Rangers that activate at the same time, especially during Forever Red. So TJ having the abilities of the Red Turbo Ranger and Tommy not is a good thing, because or Tommy not using at least the Red Turbo Ranger is a good thing, so the fucking morphing grid doesn't shut down. On top of that, the Red Turbo Ranger does not show up during Dino Thunder's coma dream sequence for Tommy, where the Green Ranger, the White Ranger, and the Red Zeo Ranger all show up to attack him and teach him a lesson in that episode. And I also think that's also a mental thing. I think Tommy doesn't believe that he is the Red Turbo Ranger, as he did hand off that mantle to TJ again. So I think that's the reason why the Red Turbo Ranger just doesn't show up anymore. It's because Tommy isn't the Red Turbo Ranger. He doesn't think he is. And he's not willing to fucking break the morphine grid for him. He doesn't have to. He's got 4 other Ranger forms he can use. He doesn't need it. But, yeah. That's... So, my opinion is, yeah. The Red Turbo Ranger isn't in Tommy's capabilities because he handed it to TJ. Dexter Morgan isn't a psychopath. Harry Morgan trained him to be. This is kind of a statement made because Dexter is an emotional person throughout the whole series. I know a lot of people don't like to believe that Dexter's an emotional person. I think, like, even memes kind of compare him to Patrick Bateman. But Dexter is emotional. He gets emotional throughout the whole series. He gets emotional when Rita dies, with the kids. He's just more emotional with people he is vulnerable with, usually with the audience. And he lies to his audience. He lies to himself all the time. I made a whole TikTok about it. You guys can watch that. The theory here seems to make it that Dexter's more tied to a routine more than anything. He might have an OCD type thing, maybe an autism type thing. I'm not a fucking armchair therapist. I'm not going to try to be. But he's tied to a routine. He likes to have things in a routine. Issue here is that Harry made that routine for him. So Harry made the routine after he saw Dexter bathe in blood. That's where they first met. And deemed Dexter a freak after Harry found him killing animals, which is a sign for psychopathy. It's a sign for serial killers. But, you know, therapy is a thing. Hunting's a thing. So the idea here is that instead of doing those things, Harry wanted Dexter to take the law into his own hands, be the vigilante from Miami, kill the people who get through the cracks of the judicial system or don't get caught in the first place. He wanted a hand of God situation when it came to Miami, and had Dexter because he knew that he could morph him into what he eventually becomes due to his need for routines and having the background of his mother being murdered so viciously, and his brother also being a serial killer that he never learned. But the idea is that Harry created him into this monster on purpose to make him into this vicious monster that hunted over Miami as the Bay Harbor Butcher, and eventually he couldn't live with himself anymore. I mean, the idea is present that Harry just couldn't live with himself after he figures out what he had created in Dexter. But I think it's more of a purposeful thing that he created, and why Harry eventually does kill himself, because he realizes how at fault he is rather than just being a part of the problem. Is this true? I want to say yes, at least in the show. The books have a demon, literally. But yeah, I want to be convinced that Dexter is just an OCD, autism, something of a disorder that requires a routine, requires things to be done in a right way, rather than a actual psychopath because of the emotions and how he treats people differently. Is not because of who he is and his mental disorders, but because of who he was trained to be and what he was trained to do to keep his compulsions in check. I'm kind of on the show aspect of things that Dexter isn't an actual psychopath. He is a trained one. I think that's fun. I think it's a fun theory. I'm inclined to agree from the show aspect of things. Again, the book is completely different and completely weird. And actually, they're really fun to read if you haven't read them already. But yeah, that's a few fan theories I found on the internet and through my friends. If you have any more you want me to talk about, please leave them in the description below. I love to read them, and maybe I'll do another one of these in the future. But until then, remember to like, subscribe, do whatever. I'll see you guys later.